As the sun dipped low in the late afternoon, it threw elongated shadows across the undulating fields of Whitmore Canine Estate, an expansive and pristine property nestled in the tranquil hills of northern Texas. Meticulously constructed kennels were aligned along the fences, each housing dogs that were bred, trained, and cared for with meticulous discipline. Yet, one enclosure, set far back from the rest, was a place no one approached without caution. This was the home of Max, a colossal German shepherd whose eyes held a cold fire and whose history was grimmer than the marks on his snout. Max did not bark, he rumbled. He did not pursue, he mauled. In the past 6 months, 3 trainers had attempted his rehabilitation. 2 departed needing stitches, and 1 with a shattered arm. Despite this, Mr. Whitmore, the reclusive billionaire tech magnate, was unwilling to euthanize Max or rehome him. The reason remained a mystery until an old, worn photograph was spotted on his office shelf. It showed a boy of about 8, sitting on a stoop and clutching a dog that was the spitting image of Max. The caption read, "Me and Duke, 1965. Whitmore had always been a proud and remote figure, difficult to approach and even harder to understand. But with dogs, his demeanor softened. They represented his sole link to something human, to his past. That was why, standing by the fence with his arms folded as a cold breeze rustled his silver hair, he delivered the proclamation himself, a $1 million reward for anyone who could restore Max's gentle nature with humans. Not merely obedient, but trusting and kind. No one smirked. Not a single person dismissed it as a jest, for they understood it was never about the money. It was about preserving something Whitmore could not bear to lose, the last remnant of the only love he had ever known. In the core of the city, where the small and silent go unnoticed, Maya moved like a wisp of smoke, unseen, unwelcomed, unclaimed. At the tender age of 12, she was already adept at vanishing into crowds, sleeping on concrete without her shivers being too audible, and asking for help without uttering a word. Her existence was a mosaic of red lights and hurried pedestrians. She frequented corners where traffic crawled, cleaning windshields with a rag that was more whole than fabric and selling candy to drivers who seldom paused. Her voice had faded over the years, not from timidity, but from lack of use. The world seldom paid attention, so she ceased to address it. She had no clear memory of her parents, only hazy impressions, a lullaby, the feel of a soft jacket, the scent of cinnamon. But those fragments had long been bartered for frigid nights and an aching hunger. One afternoon, while hunkered down near a parking lot, she caught the conversation of 2 delivery men standing by their truck. "Some crazy old billionaires offering $1 million for a dog," one said. The other sneered, "Not just any dog. That shepherd is a demon," tore up a grown man's arm. Maya's ears pricked up. She remained motionless, not even blinking, just absorbing their words. "Said anyone who can make it friendly again gets the cash," the first man continued. Later that evening, she lay curled under the rusted canopy of a shuttered gas station. Her sweatshirt was moist and her fingers were numb, yet her thoughts were not on the cold or her hunger. They were fixed on the dog. She had no interest in the money. She couldn't even imagine what $1 million was. But the notion of this dog, this creature that no one could get through to, resonated so deeply it vibrated in her chest. "Maybe it needs someone like me." Maya was awake before sunrise. The city was still in a state of slumber, shrouded in fog and the faint wail of distant sirens. Her back was sore from the cold ground, but she rose with a sense of purpose she had perhaps never known. She possessed no address, no GPS, only a name she had overheard, Whitmore Canine Estate, and an intuition that it lay far beyond the city, past the roaring highways and the clamor. Nevertheless, she got to her feet, laced up her tattered sneakers, draped her plastic water bottle over her shoulder, and began to walk. The streets were hushed as she navigated them, taking shortcuts through alleys, crossing railroad tracks, and heading out toward the open country. Periodically, she paused to ask for directions. Some people met her query with a shrug, some with ridicule, and others with noncommittal waves. "Keep going past the fields. It's way out there, kid. You're wasting your time." Yet she did not turn around. By noon, the pavement had yielded to dirt tracks and parched grass. Her legs ached. Her lips were chapped. Once, she almost trod on a snake. Twice, she thought about giving up. But an inner force, the part of her that clung to hope against all odds, propelled her onward. As the sun began to sink toward the horizon, she saw the first indication of the estate, a tall wooden gate bordered by iron bars and a pair of impassive security cameras. Beyond it, she could see rolling hills and buildings too distant to discern clearly. Her stomach growled and her legs shook, but she moved closer, her hand coming to rest on the metal fence as she murmured, "I made it." She had no idea what she would say or who might listen, but she had covered every step of the journey alone, and that had to count for something. The first time Maya knocked on the gate, nobody responded. She waited, her hands clutching the cold iron bars, her eyes searching for any sign of life beyond the trees. After a period that felt like an hour, a guard finally emerged, tall and broad-shouldered, in a crisp uniform and mirrored sunglasses that threw her own dirt-streaked reflection back at her. "What do you want, kid?" His voice was firm, almost hushed. "I heard about the dog, Max. I want to try." He snorted, a sound devoid of laughter. "You try with Max? That dog would eat you for breakfast." He did not unlatch the gate or ask for her name. He simply turned and walked away. But Maya did not go. That night, she slept huddled by the gate, her jacket zipped to her chin and her arms wrapped around her knees. Coyotes yelped in the distance, and the wind nipped at her skin, but she held her ground. The following morning, she was there once more, waiting. The same guard appeared. "Still here? Go home." "I don't have one," she replied. By the third day, murmurs had begun to circulate among the staff about the girl at the gate, the one who refused to leave. A groundskeeper brought her half a sandwich, leaving it without a word. She gave a nod of thanks, savoring each bite as if it might vanish were she to blink. On the fourth morning, as the sun ascended over the hills, she was standing in the very same spot, her hair a tangled mess, her shoes worn through, her gaze steady. The second guard, an older, more soft-spoken man, observed her for a moment before speaking into his radio. "Sir, there's a kid here. Been coming back every day. Says she wants to meet Max." A pause, a crackle of static, and then a voice replied, "I'll be there in 10. Maya did not know who had finally consented to see her, but she did not flinch, run, or smile. She simply waited, just as she always had. The crunch of polished boots on gravel was the first sound Maya registered. She did not turn her head. There was no need. The man approaching her possessed the kind of silence that made people stand straighter without realizing why. His name didn't require saying. Mr. Whitmore, the billionaire. The man who had issued the $1 million challenge. The one who hadn't granted a press interview in over a decade. Who had once graced every magazine cover, but now resided behind fences and dogs. He was dressed in a dark overcoat despite the warmth, and a deep crease was carved between his silver brows. His bearing was solid, proud, and measured, as if he didn't merely walk but commanded the very ground he trod upon. He halted a few feet from Maya. The guard retreated. He assessed her, from her matted hair down to her shredded shoes. His sharp, unreadable eyes did not waver. "You're the one who's been waiting." Maya gave a single nod. "Why?" Her response was quiet but firm. "I heard no one could reach Max. Maybe that's why I should try." Whitmore's expression remained unchanged, but a flicker of something passed through his gaze. Perhaps surprise. Or a memory. "He's not safe," he stated. "I know. And you believe you can help him?" "No," she said. "I don't think I can fix him. I just think maybe he doesn't need to be fixed. Maybe he just needs someone to stay." The silence that fell between them was as taut as a wire. Then, slowly, Mr. Whitmore took off his sunglasses, unveiling eyes that had witnessed too much and forgotten too little. He glanced past her, toward the kennel in the far distance, and then his gaze returned to her. "Be here at sunrise. You'll have one chance." Maya did not offer thanks. She simply nodded, her demeanor calm and certain, as if she had been anticipating this moment her entire life. The sun had not yet fully crested the horizon when Maya entered the yard. The grass was still dewy beneath her feet, and the morning air carried a bite that pierced her thin hoodie. Her fingers shook, but it was not from the cold. Today was not about staying warm. It was about being courageous. Across the field, handlers were making preparations. One of them strode to the far corner of the enclosure, where a thick, reinforced post was sunk into the ground. A long, heavy-duty tether was attached to it, coiled like a serpent. Max had not been permitted to roam freely for months. not since his last encounter with a trainer. Mr. Whitmore stood off to the side, arms crossed tightly over his chest, jaw set. His face was a mask of neutrality, but his very presence was more expressive than words. He had to witness this for himself. The moment Max emerged, the atmosphere became charged, as if every heartbeat on the property had synchronized with his growl. His coat was a gleam of black and gray stretched taut over powerful, lean muscles. His ears were erect, his body poised, and his teeth were slightly bared. The handler attached the tether to his thick collar and retreated swiftly, his eyes filled with caution. Max let out a deep, guttural snarl, straining against the chain with a force that seemed to shake the ground. Maya did not flinch. She positioned herself just outside the tether's reach, distant enough for safety, but near enough to be seen. She did not speak, wave, or issue a challenge. She simply knelt. No equipment, no commands, no ploys, only stillness. Max erupted in a sharp, menacing bark and then lunged against the tether, his muscles straining. The chain held firm. Dust billowed around his paws. He paced in circles, pulling, testing, and observing. And Maya? She waited, serene, steady, and present. Minutes ticked by, 10, perhaps 15. Max had ceased barking, though his body remained coiled with tension. He stood at the furthest extent of his chain, panting heavily, his eyes locked on the girl who would not be intimidated. Maya stayed on her knees, her hands resting calmly on them. Her gaze was not fixed on Max directly. She looked softly past him, as though to give him the space to observe her without feeling threatened. She was still. She hardly even blinked. She simply remained. The handlers on the edge of the yard began to shift uneasily. "We should pull her out," one murmured. Another shook his head, his eyes on Mr. Whitmore, whose arms were still folded but whose jaw had relaxed slightly. Then Max did something that made everyone hold their breath. He sat. It was not an act of obedience or training. It seemed to stem from a newfound curiosity. His ears flicked forward, and his tail, still held low, gave a barely perceptible twitch. Maya registered the change but did not react. Instead, she reached slowly, very slowly, into her hoodie pocket and took out a small, half-eaten granola bar. She unwrapped it with care, set it down in front of her, and then withdrew her hand. Max's gaze shifted from the food to her and back to the food. Another minute passed. He rose to his feet and took a single, cautious step forward, the chain jingling softly. Then another, and another, until he was at the end of his tether, inches from both the granola bar and Maya. He did not snarl or growl. He just stood there, his breath coming in heavy puffs, his face inches from hers. Maya lowered her gaze, avoiding direct eye contact, and whispered just loudly enough for only Max to hear. "It's okay. I'm not here to make you do anything. I just want to be here." Within Max, something shifted, like a thread coming loose from a long-held knot of fear. The sound of her voice, its gentleness, its absence of demand, stirred a buried memory, a forgotten warmth. It was like the echo of a love he had once known and then lost. And suddenly, the urge to defend himself vanished. He leaned down, took the granola bar, and sat beside her. Just like that. No coercion, no fear, no commands. Only stillness. Only trust. A profound silence settled over the yard long after Max sat down beside her. No one stirred. No one spoke. Even the birds seemed to have paused their song. Mr. Whitmore stepped forward, his shoes crunching on the gravel. The guards traded uncertain looks, unsure whether to follow. The handlers lowered their radios. An unspoken transformation had occurred. He stopped a few feet away, his gaze fixed on the improbable pair seated in the morning glow, a stray girl and the dog no one could get through to. "You did it," he said at last, his voice low but distinct. "No one else has ever gotten close. You won." Maya turned her head to look at him, but did not get up. "The $1 million is yours, as promised." She looked down at Max, whose body was now resting against her side, his breathing even and almost serene. She stroked his back once, then rose slowly, dusting the dirt from her knees. "I don't want the money," she said. A wave of astonishment swept through the yard. Whitmore arched an eyebrow, but remained silent, waiting. "I want a room," Maya went on. "Somewhere safe, a bed I won't get thrown out of in the middle of the night. 2 meals a day, and school. I want to go to school." Her voice was steady, but a flicker of vulnerability showed in her eyes before it was quickly concealed beneath the same calm that had soothed Max. Whitmore regarded her as if trying to grasp something far greater than her words. "That's all?" he inquired. She nodded. "That's all." He glanced past her at Max, whose eyes now tracked his every move, not with fear, but with a quiet watchfulness. Then he looked back at Maya. He let out a slow breath and spoke more softly this time. "You'll live in the main house. We have a spare room. You'll have your meals with me, and we'll get you enrolled first thing tomorrow." Maya did not weep, not audibly, but her shoulders eased for what felt like the first time in years. She gave a small nod. "Thank you." Whitmore stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder with unexpected gentleness. "You don't know what you've done here," he said. "Not just for him. For me, too." That night, Maya slept in a proper bed for the first time in her life. The mattress was plush, the sheets carried the scent of lavender, and the pillow enveloped her head as if it had been waiting for her. Her room was modest, a dresser, a small window, a desk with a lamp, but to her, it was a palace. Just outside her door, Max lay curled up, his ears twitching at every sound, as if standing guard against a world that had never shown her kindness. He did not bark. He did not growl. He simply waited, as devoted and silent as the girl who had re-taught him how to trust. In the room across the hall, Mr. Whitmore sat alone on his bed, the photo of Me and Duke, 1965, held in his hands. He gazed at it for a long time, not with sorrow as he once had, but with something resembling peace. He whispered to the image, "She didn't fix him." She reminded him he was never broken. The next morning, Maya walked alongside Mr. Whitmore as if she had always belonged there, barefoot and calm, with Max following like a shadow that had finally found its light. No one questioned it. No one doubted it. Later that week, she was enrolled in school. Whitmore adopted a new routine: morning coffee, reading the paper, and packing a small lunch bag with Maya's name on it. Max would wait by the gate for her to come home each afternoon, his tail wagging like clockwork. The people in town began to inquire about the girl at the estate, the one who had transformed the untamable dog. And when they heard the story, most would simply smile and remark, "Some things money can't fix." Because in the end, it was never about the $1,000,000. It was about being seen, being safe, and being believed in, even if just once. And sometimes, that is all it takes to change everything.